Hi, bold devotees. There seems to be confusion about who is giving class. So I guess I will jump in unless anybody on the call wants to do so. So Jaya Radha Madhava, Punjabi Hari, Kopi Janavalabha, Girivaradhara, Yashodanandana, Vajjanaranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Rathara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, uh, Canto 7, Chapter 10, Prahlad, the best among exalted devotees, text number 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, so text 22.
Today's text is 20 and 21.
2021. Okay. I misread the roster. All right. 2021, Canto 7, Chapter 10. Sarvatmana him santi bhuta grameshu kenchana uchaveshu dayetindra madbhava vigataspraha bhavanti purusha loke madbhaktas tvam anuvrata bhavan me kalu bhaktanam sarvesham Patirupadrik, Sarv Atma in all respects, even in the modes of anger and jealousy. Na, never. Him Santi, they are envious. Bhuta Grameshu, among all species of life. Kinchana, towards any one of them. Uchcha Avesheshu, the lower and higher living entities. Dayatindriya, O my dear Prahlad, king of the Dayatas. Mat Bhava, because of devotional service unto me. Vigata, given up. Spreha, all modes, all material modes of anger and greed. Avanti, become. Purusha, persons. Loke, in this world. Mat Bhakta, my pure devotee. Tvam, you. Anuvrata, following in your footsteps. Bhavan, you. May, my. Palu, indeed. Bhaktanam, of all devotees, Sarvesham, in different mellows, Pratirupadrik, tangible example. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear Prahlad, king of the Daitas, because of being attached to devotional service to me, my devotee does not distinguish between lower and higher living entities. In all respects, he is never jealous of anyone. Those who follow your example will naturally become my pure devotees. You are the best example of my devotee, and others should follow in your footsteps. Purport. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya quotes a verse from the Skanda Purana. Rate tu tatvikandevan naradadim stataivacha paradadu tamakonu vishnu bhaktau jagat. There are many, many devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they have been enumerated in Srimad Bhagavatam as follows. Swayambur Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Valir Vaisa Vir Vayam. Of the 12 authorized devotees, Lord Brahma, Narada, Lord Shiva, Kapila, Manu, and so on, Prahlad Maharaj is understood to be the best example. Om Agena Taramandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshamatamyana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, uh, these verses are speaking of the glories of Prahlad Maharaj, as told by Lord Nrsingadev himself, where it is, and it is said that Prahlad has no jealousy or envy towards anyone else. This, of course, contrasts him with the uh, character of his father, Hiranyakashipu, who is considered kind of the emblematic, uh, envious person. Of course, the main symbols of envy in the Vedic literatures are the snake and the scorpion, especially the snake. Uh, but sometimes Prabhupada would also say the wasp is envious. And Hiranyakashipu, we sing every morning, is Tanu Bringham, just like a wasp, because of his envy towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which caused him, uh, among other things, to distinguish between different living entities. We see this even in the case of how he deals with Prahlad. One who is envious sees, oh, this person is my friend, and this other person is my enemy. And then I will deal favorably with my friend and unfavorably with my enemy. And what is the basis of this vision of friends and enemies? Uh, it is, in effect, or at its core, sense gratification. You know, these people will be my friend because they are able to gratify my senses better. And these other people are my enemy because they do not gratify my senses. And therefore, I will act in one way towards my friends and another way towards my enemies on the basis of my own sense gratification. People like to dress this up in all sorts of ways, patriotism or protection or uh, all these different identifications that people have. Uh, but ultimately, it goes down to sense gratification, which means, of course, that it ultimately goes down at its core to bodily identification, because the senses, the material senses, are tied up with the body. That is, practically speaking, what the body means. And those that I can identify with my body, I will like, and those that I don't, I will dislike. Uh, and then act in such a way. Once again, there's the example of Hiranyakashipu, that those who facilitated his sense gratification, the various daitas that were in his court, uh, he considered to be friends or allies. And those that were against his sense gratification, such as Prahlad Maharaj, would he would consider to be enemies. He even compared Prahlad to a, infected limb that must be cut off to save the rest of the body. And this is the way of envious people, that they can do anything for their own sense gratification. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and then Srila Prabhupada uh, after him made, this sometimes surprising statement that, one cannot trust non-devotees. And, this seems like a very sectarian sort of statement. Is this just a in-group versus out-group thing? We'll just gather uh, our own people all around ourselves and then exclude anybody else. And we'll have our own little cult and uh, not deal with anybody else. No, the point is that unless one is controlling the senses, which practically speaking is only able to be done in this age by some level of Krishna consciousness, one is totally under the control of the mind and senses. And they impel one, even one who wants to avoid sinful activity, to uh, perform such activities. This was Arjuna's question at the end of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The mind is more difficult to control than the wind. Oh no, that's at the sixth chapter. Is that in the third chapter, it is what impels one to perform sinful activities, even if one does not want to. Of course, the Supreme Lord's answer is that it is lust only, which is the eternal enemy of the living entities, uh, and which has taken uh, shelter, has taken its position in the mind, senses, and intelligence. Therefore, even good intelligence that one should use to follow Krishna ultimately, but even on a material platform, to follow Dharma, to follow righteousness, uh, it can be overcome by lusty propensities. And the only way to regain intelligence is through the practice of Krishna consciousness. Because this Krishna conscious process uh, restores our intelligence, and it gives us a way or means to fight against this eternal enemy of the spirit soul, which is lust. Uh, Practically speaking, the only way to do so is by engagement in Krishna consciousness, uh, which is purifying in and of itself. And of course, there are many uh, ways to practice Krishna consciousness, or yeah, there are many ways to practice Krishna consciousness. There's nine, of course, main ways to do so. Uh, but even, hmm, uh, so yes, and by any one of these nine processes, one can become purified. So we do not have to guess how to please Krishna. The rules and regulations are there. The Shastra, the explanations are there for how do we please Krishna. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smarnam Parad Sevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sankyam Atma Nivedana. These are the 9 ways to perform devotional service. And of course, the way that we do so is by following the footsteps of a pure devotee. Shastra has given in different places. Prabhupada quotes this sometimes, that each of these 9 processes has somebody to exemplify uh, that process. Of course, Parikshit is the Shravanam process, Shukadev, Kirtanam, etc. So we follow in the footsteps of the pure devotees, the Guru and the Acharyas that came before us. We do not concoct our own ways to practice Krishna consciousness. Uh, Doing so is the Sahaja method, of taking everything very cheaply. Oh, I don't have to follow all of these rules and regulations. I just want to get the special mercy. So, oh, Krishna is very merciful. Prabhupada is very merciful. So, who needs all these strict rules and regulations? But the rules and regulations are the mercy of Prabhupada. That is Prabhupada's special mercy, that he taught us all of these different rules and regulations, knowing well that Rupa Goswami, we are Rupanugas, of course, uh, says in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that devotional service that does not follow the rules and regulations of the mm, Puranas, the Smriti, the Shruti, the Pancharatra literatures is simply a disturbance in society. So we have to follow uh, the example of the pure devotees. That means primarily following their instructions. But sometimes greatly advanced devotees act in ways that can be difficult to understand for our limited intelligence. I was reading yesterday, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. And Prabhupada and Brahmatirtha Prabhu were discussing the pastimes of Jesus. And this point came up because Brahmatirtha, this was of course before he was initiated, but he brought up the point that Jesus ate fish. Uh, uh, of course, Prabhupada respected Jesus Christ as a pure devotee of Krishna, uh, and devotees tend to be vegetarian. So, the point is brought up, Jesus Christ ate fish. And Prabhupada responded that if Jesus ate fish, he didn't necessarily even accept that that account was totally true. But if he did, then he had his own reasons for doing so, and that he was such an elevated personality that he could eat the entire world and not suffer any reactions for it. But that doesn't mean that we are in the same category, that we are so advanced that we can do that. Uh, but instead, we should follow the instructions, which is when Prabhupada spoke to followers of Jesus or those who were uh, claiming to be followers of Jesus. One point that he said again and again is that if you were following Jesus, you would follow his instructions. That is to be merciful and not eat meat. but who is following that instruction. Instead, on plea that Jesus ate um, fish and drank wine, then oh, let us eat meat and drink wine, instead of actually following the instructions. Uh, even Jesus himself, now that I'm on the topic, uh, criticized the Pharisees for something similar. He says in the Gospel of John that if you were actually the children of Abraham, then you would do the works of Abraham. That is, you would follow uh, the example that Abraham set and his instructions. And we have so many examples and instructions, both in every tradition. For those who are at that level, there are the examples of Jesus and Muhammad, and then in the Vedic example, or the Vedic tradition, we have so many examples as well. Um, in, of course, all the sampradayas, but especially in our own Gaudiya sampradaya. There are so many acharyas that we have there to take the example of. Uh, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada quotes the verse of the 12 Mahajans uh, who are examples for how to prosecute Krishna consciousness, for how to practice Krishna consciousness. And of course, there's Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, Gaurkishore, Bhaktivinoda, uh, various devotees in Bhagavatam and in Chaitanya Charitamrita. There are so many good examples of how to practice Krishna consciousness. And of course, the devotees who have gone back to Godhead by following Srila Prabhupada's example within ISKCON. And Prabhupada says that of all of these examples, Prahlad Maharaj is understood to be the best. Uh, and the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj are considered very uh, nectarian by the devotees. It is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Lord Chaitanya had the pastimes of Prahlad and Dhruva read to him again and again, hundreds of times. He didn't just focus on the Madhurya Ras sections of the Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, Rasa Leela, etc. But remembered Dhruva and Prahlad. Uh, and if one looks at the example of Prahlad Maharaj, it does provide a very good archetype or emblem of how to advance in Krishna consciousness in this day and age. Because Prahlad had such um, difficult material circumstances, but never wavered in his remembrance of Krishna. Uh, sometimes, of course, we understand that the different activities of the great devotees are pastimes. But looking at the list of the 12 Mahajans, one can sometimes say, can sometimes find pastimes that are confusing. Are these people really uh, examples to look up towards. Uh, Lord Brahma, of course, chased after his own daughter. Shiva, after Mohini Murti. Bhishma stayed silent and sided with the Kauravas uh, during the attempted disrobing of Draupadi. Uh, there are various examples of pastimes that are hard to understand. But the example of Prahlad is very straightforward and very instructive for us in that despite um, extreme hardship and extreme opposition, Prahlad kept in his consciousness the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And, as we will definitely face hardships, we can keep this example in mind. No matter what uh, hardships that we face, whether they are brought about by others, whether that is family or society or neighbors, or the hardships brought about by the consequences of our own choices. Uh, we can remember the example of Prahlad Maharaj, and in whatever circumstance, uh, remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, try to prosecute full Krishna consciousness. So I will end here. This class, at least, seemed to me a bit all over the place, but uh, I was not expecting to give class today, and I had just read the verse when I was told what verse it was. So hopefully, some people have more constructive or well thought out um, comments or questions about this or any other topic.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo,
Thank you for your class, Prabhu.
thank you.
I'm very much appreciating um, your willingness to jump in on short notice, and you delivered a very nice class in spite of having no opportunity to prepare.
Thank you.
Uh, Thank you very much. I'm not sure I have a lot to add, but I'm just thinking about this extraordinary statement made by Lord Nrsimhadev, who states that um, Prahlad Maharaj is the best example
Mm,
out of all the 12 Mahajans. It's just such an extraordinary statement.
hmm
The Mahajans are widely regarded as the topmost devotees, the topmost authorities on the science of Krishna consciousness. They are all extraordinary examples. They include the head of our sampradaya, Lord Brahma, Narada
hmm
Muni, who is the spiritual master of Prahlad Maharaj. So, um, based upon what Srila Prabhupada is saying, it appears that Prahlad Maharaj has excelled even his own spiritual master.
mm,
Um, so very extraordinary personality, and I can understand why, therefore, Srila Prabhupada would give so much time and attention to the instructions of Prahlad Maharaj. What we have from Srila Prabhupada's purports in Srimad Bhagavatam is, relatively speaking, the tip of the iceberg. But there were numerous times when Srila Prabhupada chose to give classes on these verses, these chapters of the story of Prahlad Maharaj.
Hmm.
Um, there was one instance very early in the movement, in I think it was 1968. He gave a lecture series on these chapters in Montreal, and then later he did the same in Mayapur on the occasion of the Gaur Purnim festival, and he did that 2 years in a row. Same verses, 2 years in a row. So evidently, Srila Prabhupada felt it was pretty important, and he had a great deal to say about these chapters. And here he's reiterating the statement of Lord Nrsimhadev that Prahlad Maharaj is the topmost example, even amongst all the 12 Mahajans. He's considered to be the best.
Hmm.
And the same statement, of course, is made by our previous acharyas.
Hmm.
Um, there is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. I'm just looking at his commentary here, and he, of course, um, uh, it's stated by Lord Nrsimhadev, so there's no escaping it. Every acharya is going to comment on
Hmm.
the statement that Prahlad Maharaj is the best example for all the devotees, all the devotees. Anyway, I'm just thinking about how extraordinary that is. It's just slowly dawning on me that how very special Prahlad Maharaj is, and so it's clicking for me now. I'm understanding why Srila Prabhupada has chosen to speak so much on these verses. It's just the best of examples. Um, I used to think, and um, maybe I'm not entirely wrong, but the fact that he spoke so much on these chapters before his disciples, we were all ourselves very young devotees.
Hmm.
Um, and we were, in many cases, also persecuted by our parents
Hmm.
and society at large. So we had elements in common with Prahlad Maharaj, and I thought that perhaps Srila Prabhupada um, spoke so much on the life and example of Prahlad Maharaj because it was pertinent to so many of his disciples. But I'm appreciating now that there's more to the story. That Prahlad's story, his instructions are uh, particularly special, even amongst
Hmm.
all the Mahajans. That's just extraordinary. That's an incredible statement. It's an amazing statement. That's it's just a huge distinction. There
Hmm.
are, of course, the Nitya Siddhas, those devotees who reside eternally with Krishna in the spiritual sky, um, always engaged in Krishna's Nitya Leela eternally. They have never fallen down. So the direct associates of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan may be said to be um, even greater than Prahlad Maharaj, but amongst the greatest of the devotees that ever appear within the material universes, Prahlad is regarded as the greatest example.
Mhm.
Very special. Anyway, it's just my that's what I'm thinking about. I'm just awestruck by that. I don't have anything else to contribute, really. But thank you for your class, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your comments. Yashodev Prabhu, I see your virtual hand raised.
Haribo Kalashui Prabhu. Thanks for
Haribo,
Bhagavatam class.
no problem.
Um, I guess I take a little issue with this claim that all of these Mahajans are meant to be examples that we follow, because there's a famous statement from Shukadev Goswami in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam where he says explicitly the opposite.
Hmm.
I could put it in the chat here, but you
Yeah,
might be familiar
please.
with this one. Naitat Samacharach Jatu, where Shukadev Goswami is saying one should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One
Hmm.
should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. So I guess my question for you and for all the devotees present is, how do we make that distinction? Here, of course, Lord Nrsingadev is saying very explicitly, one should follow your example of Prahlad. And yet in other places, we're said not to follow the example of Lord Shiva and drink the ocean of poison or smoke ganja. I actually quoted this verse to a Shivite once. It did not, I don't think I convinced him to stop smoking ganja. But so I'm just curious about what your thoughts are between this distinction. Imitating, where we're said to not imitate, but to follow the instructions. But in the case of Prahlad, at least, we're told that he is an example that one should follow. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there, I think there's a distinction between following the example and imitating. In that, when one follows the example, it is always subordinate to the instructions. So, there's different pramans that we have. Of course, the big three are uh, Shabda, Pratyaksha, and Anuman. Uh, but, the various different schools of epistemology include other ones, right? Tradition is sometimes said to be a praman, for example. Uh, kind of, some people put this under Anuman, but comparison, uh, s- s- uh, comparing an unknown thing to a known thing is said to be a way of gaining knowledge. And then also the example of a pure devotee, or even the feelings of a pure devotee. There's this, I can't remember the entire context, but there's this discussion in Mahabharata where one of the proofs that Yudhisthira brings is, it feels right to me. Which of course, if I say, or, most people say, feels right to me, then it's like, what good is that? But, if Yudhisthira, who's Dharmaraj, says it feels right to me, that's something. But still, that is subordinate to Shabda Praman. So, one can follow the examples of so following the example of the great devotees is always subordinate to following their instructions, whereas imitation is not. So, like, for example, there could be sometimes instructions that are equivocal or seemingly contradictory or confusing, in which case we follow the examples that the great acharyas that have given. While in other cases, it seems like the actions and the instructions are different, in which case we follow the instructions and then we understand the actions as an adjustment that the acharya is able to make based on the time, place, and circumstance. So that's, my thoughts. It looks like Tarka Prabhu has a comment on this topic.
I have a comment, because Srila Prabhupada spoke about this issue quite a bit. And what he explained is that there is a distinction between imitation and emulation. So following in the footsteps means to emulate the behavior of someone, whereas imitation is very superficial and is just merely copying. Imitation means to copy the outward form of something, whereas emulation means trying to match or surpass the function or the achievement or the standard of something. So imitation copies the appearance or the behavior, whereas emulation seeks to reproduce the result or the capability or the excellence. As an example, a child who repeats the exact words of the teacher and gestures is imitating the teacher. And in contrast to that, a student who studies the teacher's method and understands the principles and tries to become equally skilled is emulating the teacher. So that's the distinction. We are encouraged to emulate the acharyas, the mahajans, the great devotees, but not to imitate. Imitate is cheap and superficial. And as Yashadev pointed out, in the case of Lord Shiva, we certainly don't follow his example because we are not as great as Lord Shiva. We can't drink an ocean of poison without ill effect. Um, so we have to understand our limitations. We don't imitate, but we emulate. So emulation involves a deep understanding and an achievement of a level of capability. Imitation is just cheap and superficial. We don't imitate. That's my comment, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, thank you. It is 8 o'clock, so we will end here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.